So silver has definitely started to recover from last week's price drop. As you guys know, or maybe you don't, but last week we saw silver take a massive dive over 12% in just 2 days. And you can see it very clearly just looking at this chart. On Wednesday, April 2nd, we were at $34 an ounce. Just 2 days later, Friday, April 4th, we closed at $29.59. That is a significant price drop. And we covered it extensively on this channel, but one thing we didn't do is find out how retail customers were responding, especially at local coin shops. Were they going in to sell their silver because they thought it was going to go lower? Were they buying the dip? Were people actually trading their gold for silver? These are all questions that we are going to answer today because we are joined by Josh from Minot Coin Bullion. Josh, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on today.
Well, I am glad to have you. There's a lot to talk about. Obviously, last week we had a pretty significant dip in spot prices. Now, it has rebounded a little bit this week, but that drop last week was significant. One of the biggest drops I'd seen in a long time. Josh, I need to know what happened in your shop after that happened. Did people come in freaking out? Did they come in selling? Did they come in wanting to buy? What happened those last couple of days of the week last week?
All of the above. Most people were coming in to buy the dip. A lot of my customers that I know are very well educated and versed, and they're checking spot price, maybe some days as much as I am. So to see it fall off a cliff like it did, those that had the means saw it as an opportunity and came in to buy. Also had people coming in kind of freaked out, not knowing if they should buy. Is it going to go lower? How low is it going to go? I'm going to wait. And other people did come in and sell. So honestly, it was kind of business as usual. I had a little bit of everything, but the volume was much, much bigger. It was very, very busy in the shop with a lot of activity, a lot of people coming in just to ask questions, why, how long, all questions I don't have answers to, but we had discussions about the markets. And one thing that you didn't maybe ask that I've done a lot of since this massive price drop, and I think you've touched on the ratios on your channel, is people have been doing some gold to silver swaps because of the out of balance ratio between the two. It was over 100 to 1 for a while. I'm not sure where it sits right now, but it's pretty close to 100 to 1. But a lot of people converting gold to silver just to try to, basically buy more ounces. Versus where they could have 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I was going to bring the GSR up with you, so no sweat there, but I agree. So it actually hit 102 to 1 when I recorded that video last week about this, about the drop. And that's when I kind of made that decision of, man, I know not everybody is a big fan of the GSR. Some people think the GSR is dead. I don't. And so, when I see a huge GSR like 100 to 1, 101, 102 to 1, that signals to me that I should probably trade some of my gold out for silver. So let me ask you this, to people that were coming in and swapping gold and silver, obviously as a coin shop, you have to make money. What was the premium like there? What was the actual gold to silver ratio after you factor in like the premium that you need to make to keep your shop running?
It varied. It really depended on what gold they were trading in and what type of silver they were trading out. The way I handled it, I did a wholesale to wholesale comparison cost between the two. Let's just say you're trading me in a gold eagle. I'm going to figure out what my wholesale cost is for that. And you want to trade out, let's just say Canadian silver maple leaves. I'll figure my wholesale cost on that. And then depending on the transaction size, I do a 2 to 3% fee. So it's costing you 2 to 3%. So 98 to 97 ounces, usually if it was 100 to 1 is what they would walk out with. But if they wanted something that's higher premium and they're trading in something that's a lower premium, like I had somebody trade in a gold bar and they wanted American silver eagles. Well, they're going to get less silver eagles because of the higher premium. So it's all relative to, actual cost of the items being swapped. But typically it's a 2 to 3% hit you take because that's the profit or the commission I take to do the trade because I'm doing it on their demand, not on my demand. And since then, I've taken in quite a bit of gold that I normally wouldn't hold in inventory. In fact, yesterday I had one of my very good customers. He was leaving town, but he wanted to stop in yesterday morning and do a gold swap. He brought in 15 gold bars, and he said, "I want 1,500 buffalo rounds." So we did the deal. Unfortunately, and you've talked about it, I believe too, there's getting to be product delays. So I had to order his 1,500 buffalo rounds. the way the trade worked on that one, I think it ended up being 1,507 ounces, but then I took a 2% fee on that. So he just took 1,500 ounces and wrote a check for the difference. It was like $600 or $700 to do that trade. But he felt really good about it because knowing what he had into the gold, it was a beneficial trade for him. So that's kind of what's going on now. A lot of people are doing that swap, but surprisingly, I've had some swaps done the other way as well. I have had people come in trading silver for gold at these over 100-to-1 ratios. So I think it's preference.
Yeah, I mean, preference makes sense. Like I said, to me, I think the GSR is still kind of important. So when I see 100-to-1, I can't imagine why anyone would want to swap silver into gold at that point. But, to each their own. I think eventually that ratio will tighten up, and that would have been a better opportunity to do so.
Right.
Let me ask you this. So a couple of questions popped up in my head while you were talking there. First one is the guy with the 1,500 ounces of buffaloes for 15 bars. Did you say he took the 1,507 or he just took 1,500 flat?
He wanted 1,500 ounces flat. So the way the conversion worked, he was due 1,507 ounces, but he owed the 2%. So He took back 7 ounces and we reduced what he owed because he wanted full boxes. He didn't want 7 loose buffaloes.
No, that totally makes sense. So he basically got 1,500 ounces, then he had to pay a few $100, just to cover your costs, basically.
Right. Yeah.
Right. No, that makes sense. Yeah. So in that situation, the GSR, you had also mentioned, someone bringing in a bar and wanting to get eagles. I would not do that. I think, when I talk about doing a GSR swap, that comes out of my deep stack. I've talked many times about how I have what I call a light stack, which is stuff that I intend to trade or even sell when I need to. But once something hits my deep stack, it stays there unless, I absolutely need it. Like if I come down with, God forbid, cancer or something like that, and I have to pay for medical bills, or unless there's an opportunity to arbitrage into swapping that gold into silver because the GSR is so high, or alternatively, if I see the GSR tighten to like 50-to-1, I'm going to start pushing back in the gold, right? So that's when I hit that deep stack. But when I do that, I want to get as much of the silver as I can. So I would definitely be looking at, trading in for buffalo rounds or, low premium bars or whatever it may be, just because I want to get the most ounces I can get. Right. So with that guy who traded the bar for the eagles, if you don't mind me asking, I should say, how many eagles did he end up getting for his 1 ounce bar?
Oh, I'd have to check my paperwork behind me, but I think it was 92 or 93. It was like 4 or 5 ounces less than he would have gotten had he done a trade for lower premium privately minted bullion, but he wanted eagles.
And he was okay with taking less silver then?
Yeah, he understood. Yeah, he had the option, and he chose the higher premium eagles and took less.
Did he say why he preferred eagles?
No, we didn't get into that. No, I'm not sure why, but
fair enough. Okay, well, you said overall the velocity was up in your shop. Just how busy was it those couple of days?
Very busy. I need 3 employees helping me, and I have none. So some days are very overwhelming. Unfortunately, I can't get to every phone call because I always have a steady stream of people in the shop. They're all customers, but a lot of them, they'll buy a couple things and they'll hang out for an hour and talk with others that come in, and, kind of small town barbershop type atmosphere, which I love. It's great to have people in here, but I've had a lot of new people coming and going too, that are paying attention to the news, that are buying. Just yesterday too, gosh, I had a lot of large orders for silver because they realized that, it fell off a cliff last week and maybe it's a good opportunity to buy some more. So, the situation we're in, though, in the markets, I don't necessarily like the time we're in because customers have to wait. If you place a big order with me, or probably pretty much any bullion dealer, and they have to go out and source the product you want, if it's silver, there's going to be product delays. My main wholesaler has told me essentially any design of silver round is about a 4-week delay. So that's kind of tough for people to understand, but that's a situation we're in because when we had this big drop last week, essentially all of the live product in the wholesale channels got bought up. So there's not, refined retailable silver available right now because the refiners are behind trying to produce it. So there are delays. So essentially people are buying their spots in line right now. And that started really late last week. I do still have silver inventory in the shop, of course. I'm not going to sell all of my silver to one person that walks in. And I've had people say that in times like this. Well, what do you got left for, silver rounds? And I don't know, a few thousand. I want them all. I'm like, well, no, I can't sell them all to you because now I can't sell any to the person that walks in and wants to buy one. So how many do you really want? And we'll figure it out and get an order placed. And that's what we've been doing. So I have a stacked up line of people that have paid or traded in the gold, right, to receive silver, that they've just bought their spot in line. So as those orders start coming in that I've placed, we'll start filling those orders. So it's not necessarily a good time for anybody when it happens like that, but that's the situation we're in. And I know it's just not in my shop, talking with other dealers.
No, I know it's not either. I've talked to some other dealers as well who said they've seen a significant increase in business. A lot of people asking about silver. I'm going to ask a couple of questions here. First one is, what about premiums with obviously the product delays? And guys, keep in mind, product delays does not mean there's a silver shortage. I'm certainly not. I don't think Josh is saying there's a silver shortage either. Right. It's just sometimes it takes a while to get the silver produced into marketable or sellable form, like rounds and bars. And when you have an influx of people wanting to buy it, sometimes there's a delay in getting the product there. There's not a shortage of silver. But right. With those delays and with all the increased interest in silver, how has that affected premiums for you from your wholesaler? Because I've looked online at like some of the wholesale dealers, and the only thing I haven't seen an increase on premium on is 90%. 90% seems to be staying kind of low, but I did notice an increase in rounds, even from wholesalers. And Eagles, a little bit, not much, but a little bit. What about you, though?
Exactly the same. I watched your video you put out yesterday with those price increases, and it basically echoes what I'm seeing as well. My wholesaler, Dave from Coin Huskers, called me right away Thursday morning and said, I haven't heard official numbers yet, but be prepared for premium increases. Premiums raised twice that day on silver rounds. Since then, I think we've had they've went up 3 different times. So I can talk numbers. I think right now I can buy silver rounds for, I think he told me 55 cents over spot, which is still a great deal. I know some of the retailers you did the video on yesterday were up over $3 an ounce. So I don't know where they're getting theirs from, or they're taking pretty hefty profits, but that's way, way up because we're not too far removed. Back in early March, it's almost as if there was a surplus of silver in the channels, and I could buy silver rounds wholesale at spot, sometimes a little back of spot, and that's for brand new product. So that's a big shift. I mean, 55 cents doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're dealing in thousands and thousands of ounces, that's a lot of money that it's went up. As far as American Silver Eagles, a slight bump. I've raised my retail premium 25 cents on American Silver Eagles. And likewise on my silver rounds, I've went up 25 cents on retail. So not a big increase, but I'm not too far away with having to bump it up again. If we get another little jump in premium, right now, I mean, the profit I get on one silver round is less than it was a week ago in terms of dollars. So I'd like to, if I can, end my prices in 25-cent increments. It's just easier in the shop. But yeah, I think we're not out of the woods yet, and I think premiums can and probably will continue to creep up.
Yeah. So
on those items.
Right. You talked about like you're making a little bit less per ounce right now than you were a week ago. I got a question for you. So when silver, people only have so much money, right?
Yep.
The people that come to your shop, they don't have an unlimited checkbook. So when, let's say silver goes to like $60 an ounce, if the premiums stay on a dollar amount where they are now, technically you're going to make less profit because you can only sell so many ounces. And if somebody comes in and buys 10 ounces and you make $1 per ounce, and then, a year from now, silver's 60 and someone comes in with that same amount of money, can only buy 5 ounces, you're still only making $1 an ounce. Yeah. How do you deal with that loss in profit because people just can't buy as much of the product you're selling?
That's a very good question. I've never had that posed to me before. I get a lot of questions surrounding how do you make money in this business, but never quite put that way. I think in that situation, if silver does double in price, and people can only afford to spend the same amount of dollars, that's interesting. At that point, have premiums changed? Have my costs changed? I guess if everything all stays the same, yeah, essentially I'm going to have less. I'm going to have basically half the profit I would have had the market been normal, right? So how do you deal with it? I don't know. Start pinching pennies. I mean, you can only charge so much, but if that's the situation, let's be honest, it's going to affect not just me, it's going to affect everybody. And you can't operate, you know, on rate. Well, we already do, but you can't operate on margins that are so razor thin. You have to worry, God, is this check going to clear? Can I afford the light bill this month? So inevitably in that situation, I hate to say it, but costs for the consumer are going to go up. So which means starting wholesale costs to me are going to go up. So retail costs to the customer are going to go up. And we see that happen. It's a cycle. And I'm not surprised that we're in the position we are right now, because as you talked at the beginning of the video, silver falls off a cliff and goes down over $4 an ounce. You know, we're going to have a rush in to buy. Supply is going to get bought up. We're going to start having product delays and premiums go up. We've seen this same old song and dance before. It's happened many times. So I'm not surprised the situation we're in. I'm just not a big fan of operating business that way, because I don't like people to have to wait, and I don't like to have to wait for my silver either. So it's kind of a tricky situation, but that's what we're in right now.
Yeah, you know, the reason I asked you that question is because it wasn't very long ago that silver was under $20 an ounce. And I don't think the premiums, I mean, outside of obviously 22, 23, I don't think the premiums were much different than they are today. So, you know, right. Eagles were, you know, 354 over at retail. They're a little bit higher than that today, but not too much. But I guess my point is it doesn't seem like premiums have went up as much as spot prices went up, which is what made me pose that question. But let's move on from that. My next question is, you had talked about, we're going to kind of get back to people bringing in gold, swapping for silver. And you talked about a inventory crunch on current available silver. What about gold? Are you seeing too much gold? Do you have an overflow of gold right now? Or are you having to ship some of that out?
I have not had to ship any out. And in fact, I'm still ordering gold because I still have a lot of people coming in to buy gold. So am I carrying more gold in inventory than I normally would? I am, which now more than ever ties up more cash, right? Because gold's, you know, around its all-time high. So, but I have it in inventory because it's moving. So, I mean, I have no problem doing gold for silver swaps. Even though my silver supply is strained right now, there's still a fair amount of people that are going to come in and buy that gold. So I guess I'm fortunate where I haven't been so overwhelmed where I've had to liquidate it to a wholesaler or a refinery to melt. So I'm in an okay position right now.
That's good. All right. So my last question today, and then we're going to get off of here because it's running pretty long already, is this. Why are people so excited to come in and buy silver when it drops $4 an ounce, when in reality, it wasn't just a couple of months ago that it was still cheaper than it is even after that drop? Like, why weren't they just buying when silver was $27 or $28 an ounce instead of waiting till it gets to 34 and then dropping to 30?
Well, I think it's because, number one, most humans have short attention spans, and silver wasn't really in the news when it was $27, $28 an ounce. It was all gold, 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 all-time high today, all-time high next day. So silver kind of became an afterthought, and that's also very typical. That's just, you know, we can kind of measure human behavior and buying patterns being in this industry long enough, and it's truly, truly not surprising. But when it gets back in the news, silver down 12%, you know, oh, wow, gosh, maybe that's a good time I should buy silver. Not really having any idea of its past performance, you hear that big drop and it's the buy the dip mentality, right? So I think that's what we're seeing, because I've had, me personally, a lot of new customers coming in, and they've told me that they're buying for the first time. And this is literally since last Thursday, so less than a week now. I've had new people coming in specifically saying, you know, I've been thinking about it for a long time, and, you know, I saw silver's down a bunch. I figure it's a good time to buy. You know, in their mind it is. And is it a good time to buy? History will tell us ultimately, right? But I think that's the reason. You know, there was little interest from the public when silver had those lower spot prices, because gold was getting all the attention in the media. So that's my thought.
All right. Well, fair enough, Josh. And we're going to leave it at that. I just really quickly want to say, though, guys, we have Josh on hopefully a couple of times a month. Sometimes we go a little bit longer, but He has his own coin shop and his own YouTube channel. So if you want to hear more from Josh in between the times that he's here on this channel, check out his YouTube channel. A link in the description below. And if you're in Minot, North Dakota, check out Minot Coin and Bullion. Josh, thank you so much for joining us. I really, really appreciate it.
Likewise. Thanks for having me.
Anytime.